while we get set up, I'm really curious who's in the audience and how many, knowledge check on DAOs here. How many people would say you're brand new to DAOs? Whoa. Okay, how many of you are part of more than 5 DAOs? Okay, so probably somewhere in the middle. Awesome. Also, I just sprinted here from my hotel because my Uber canceled on me. So if I look like I'm panting, it's because I am panting. That's it, yeah. Awesome. Hey, okay, we're good. This is a slow starting talk. Excited to be here. Thanks so much. Cool. Thanks so much. Hey, I'm Shannon, here to talk about why DAOs matter. It seems, I'm sure a lot of people in the audience probably have your own thoughts on why DAOs matter. I'm going to share a little bit about the particular lens I bring to think about DAOs, and would love to make this interactive. If folks want to throw out questions in the middle of me speaking, please go ahead. I'll try and keep the talk short so that we can open it up to Q&A. So why do DAOs matter? A lot of subtext that could be put here. I'm going to try and really briefly go through DAOs in their core essence, what I think underlies why so many people are interested in DAOs at this particular moment, and I think it's around decentralization as a core value culturally, and end with some challenges for future DAO design. So first of all, who am I? I entered crypto in 2011 when I was working in Canada's finance department in the financial sector policy branch, where we thought Bitcoin was a financial crime, and I was helping to regulate it with Canada's central bank. So I'm a recovering bureaucrat. I spent 5 years in the central agencies of Canada's federal government. I was in the Privy Council office where I advised the Prime Minister on intergovernmental relations, came into government after being a political scientist, looking at federalism. So I think a lot about, decentralized governance structures. I went on to work at the World Economic Forum for 3 years, which again, some of you are probably familiar with as a very centralized approach to try to make the world a better place. I spent a bunch of time in impact investing as well. I was Canada's representative at the Global Steering Group for Impact Investing in 2018 to 2019, and really dove headfirst full-time into this space in 2019. Started doing hackathons with ETH Global mainly to try and find my niche as someone who's not a developer but cares deeply about governance. Where could I fit? Ended up meeting an amazing Solidity developer over a year ago, and we designed a layer 2 DAO protocol together called Devolution, which won the Scaling Ethereum hackathon last year. And the whole idea is creating an extensible, modular, composable DAO framework that gives communities the flexibility they need to design their own governance structures. In September, I left the founder journey and got poached by Livepeer, which is building the world's open video infrastructure. And I was hired as head of community and governance there, but we've been growing insanely rapidly since September, and I now do anything that's not technical. I just this morning gave myself a new title called Chief Decentralized Growth Officer, where I'm trying to help us spend $40 million in venture capital in a way that helps our communities grow with us. I'm also from a very small and special part of the world called Newfoundland, which is a big reason why I care about creating a networked world of inherently distinct, creative, unique places, people, and it's why I'm interested in being here and talking about this. So, what is a DAO? You guys have probably seen this slide before. I think it's probably Kuba Truba's greatest contribution to this space is actually listing everyone who claims to be a DAO. You can see that there are so many different ways to slice and dice what a DAO is. We have DAO operating systems, which I would probably put Devolution, where you're actually like creating the DAO technology and the software that communities use to run DAOs. Protocol DAOs, like DeFi projects would be traditional protocol DAO projects. I would put Livepeer as a protocol DAO as well. Investment DAOs, like Metacartel, the LAO. These are investment clubs. Syndicate DAO does a really good job of helping groups of less than 100 investors spin up and collectively make decisions over assets like NFTs. Social DAOs like Friends with Benefits, Seed Club, which are really creating social tokens and membership-based DAOs. So there's a lot, and there's probably more that's not on this slide, but you get the sense for, I think the three basic categories people tend to agree on are protocol DAOs, investment DAOs, and social or creator DAOs. This is an interesting piece that Forbes published just a couple weeks ago, just highlighting, I think, the moment that DAOs are having as, really mainstreaming their legitimacy. That this, I don't know if you can tell, this photo is actually a picture of Tribute Lab CEO Aaron Wright and the COO Priyanka Desai, who are the founders of the LAO and have done just a huge amount of work to advance the DAO space. And they're standing in front of a popular NFT mural, that their DAO purchased, and Flamingo DAO turned essentially $10 million investment into what's now a $1 billion NFT collection. So it's an example of an investment DAO. So in essence, we could spend the whole day trying to debate what a DAO is, but I think for me, fundamentally, and the definition that I want to stick with is DAOs are fundamentally using blockchain technology to design and govern collective decision-making over shared assets on the internet. And I feel like this definition just really puts smart contracts at the core of DAOs and makes clear that what we're talking about are groups who are actually using smart contract architecture to decide who gets to vote on what, and most importantly, how those decisions of the community get executed. And sometimes people think of, go ahead.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding your definition, but by your definition, MakerDAO is not a DAO, I think, because they do not really govern the assets. They govern parameters of the system. Do you agree or do you disagree? I'm sure you know MakerDAO.
Well, MakerDAO governs their protocol, though, right? Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. So the question is, what's an asset? That's, I think, the really interesting point. So do I think you can be a DAO without a treasury? Absolutely. You can totally spin up basic DAO smart contract architecture that doesn't have a treasury module attached to it. You just set up a voting, you can just set up a DAO. You can call a DAO. You can create a voting logic, an execution logic around that. So,
very good point that the asset doesn't need to be a token, for instance, well-being of the protocol.
Yeah, I think, again, because I want to stand by the smart contract connection definition, you do need some kind of token to be able to, you need some kind of smart contract framework to do the actual voting logic and execution, whether that's a multi-sig or a governance token. Yeah. Good question. We can definitely get into that more. Yeah, I think some of the other like misconceptions around DAOs are like, they're radically democratic in that everyone has to vote on absolutely every decision, and if everyone's not voting on everything, it's not a DAO. I think that's actually false, and there's a lot of different ways and amazing projects that are working on creating sub-DAOs and nested DAO structures where you start to identify what are domains of expertise or functional areas, or just, types of decisions or like domains of knowledge that not everyone has to be involved in making decisions on. So that, I think that's another important point. Did anyone else want to debate, make a point, ask a question around defining DAOs? Because I'm just going to stick with this definition after this. Cool. So I think, asking why DAOs matter, for me, I think it's really about why decentralization matters. And my kind of thesis right now is that the growing interest in DAOs is really about the perceived value of decentralization that underpins blockchain technology. So blockchain has gotten us to this point where more people appreciate decentralization as a way of organizing and doing and building things and being. So DeFi was arguably the first valuable application of the underlying blockchain technology layer. But one of the most important trends in the blockchain space over the last year has been this transition from focusing on decentralized finance and DeFi to also thinking about decentralized governance. And that's really what DAOs are. So why are so many more people gravitating towards decentralization as something that they want to be a part of, culturally, socially, technologically? And I really think it's that we've reached a point where centralization and uniformity have just created a bit of a toxic plague in our global culture, really. That is, it's creating a plague of sameness that I believe is killing human joy and creativity. And I know the people in this space are actively working to move us in a direction away from that. But I think that it's the frustration with this feeling of, just sameness, making it harder to feel like you're different and to see what's different is what's driving a lot of momentum here. And I think that plague of sameness and that kind of top-down way of looking at how to make the world a better place has actually limited our creativity and our ability to solve public problems at a global scale. The UN Sustainable Development Goals are probably the closest global consensus we have right now on what's wrong with the planet. And the financing gap, like the estimation of the funds that are needed to deliver on all 25 of those development goals, it just keeps getting bigger. Like when I started in this space 4 or 5 years ago, the gap was like $2 trillion. And now it's, with the pandemic, $100 trillion. So we have to ask ourselves, like, how is it possible that we know that much money exists, or like that amount of capital or resources exist to be able to solve these problems, but they're not getting solved? So again, I think that the potential for DAOs as a tool to help us coordinate at scale is why people are also entering into this space. So another way to think about this is peak centralization. I thought I made up that term last night, but it turns out Balaji's used it a lot. What I've just described is really, I think, awakening a collective kind of unconsciousness, and we're all just feeling that kind of malaise. And I think that the way we're seeing people activate around decentralization and DAOs within the blockchain space is really around 3 different axes, and that's technologically, people are waking up to how centralized things are. You know, the fact that blockchain was created and we've all been building in this space for a while shows that we're actively working to decentralize a centralized, you know, technology industry. Economically, I think people are frustrated that we've used GDP as a blanket metric for how we're all doing in the world. That GDP, you know, as the total monetary value of all goods and services produced by a country, is the ultimate measure of prosperity. But of course, GDP, you know, misses a lot. It doesn't count people's health or clean environment, and it doesn't pay attention to our quality of life. And you know, on the centralization around the economic axis, of course, you have you know, centralization of wealth, and that comes from the ownership of capital, and people not owning what they're putting their work towards. And I think, again, that's another reason why people are really interested in the DAO space at this moment. And socially, I think this one's really interesting. So because we have this centralized, monopolistic Web2 technology industry that, because of its business model, forces creators to build the largest possible audience so advertisers can get the largest number of eyeballs on content, has forced people to build really shallow audiences and be part of really shallow audiences. And there's a huge epidemic of loneliness that the pandemic has only exacerbated. I mean, the numbers have just been getting worse about like the extreme loneliness people are feeling. So again, I think that the promise of DAOs and why more people are interested is because it creates a more promising way for us to engage meaningfully with one another and to find community and to feel a sense of belonging. So I want to like just spend a bit of time going into a few examples of how DAOs are being activated and how decentralization is kind of materializing right now around those three axes. So the first is around decentralized tech and Web3 infrastructure. And why does decentralized Web3 technology matter? I've kind of alluded to this already, but in Web2, developers and creators are forced to rely on a few centralized services and platforms, and to cover the high cost of operating internet infrastructure, and I think that's the core point, right? It's like, it's expensive and complicated to do things like video transcoding, which Livepeer is decentralizing. And so to cover those cost, platforms like YouTube rely on those advertising business models that, you know, capture users' personal data and force creators to develop those mass audiences. And YouTube has a 50% take rate on every dollar generated by a creator on its platform. And YouTube had to sell to Google because it couldn't cover its infrastructure costs. I don't know if YouTube's actually still losing money. I think Twitch is still losing money because, again, they can't cover their infrastructure costs. So this is why we're building Web3 at like an infrastructure level, is to be able to solve this problem. And I will show Livepeer just for a second. So Livepeer is a proof-of-stake protocol built on Ethereum that provides decentralized transcoding. So transcoding is what optimizes video for every device, and it represents about 80% of the internet's bandwidth today. And with a global decentralized network of node operators, Livepeer's video services are actually about 10 times cheaper than centralized industry servers. So we really want to be part of a new renaissance of like applications on the internet that can use, you know, Web3 infrastructure and to create more decentralized applications. And there are other amazing infrastructure projects that are trying to like lower the cost. The Graph, Arweave, Akash, there are a bunch of others who are here this week, or maybe some are in the audience. So decentralized value and the creator economy. So DAOs and decentralization here like really create the potential for more diverse and sustainable communities around new and unique sources of creativity, and the value creation of that and the valuation of that creativity in new ways through tokenization. So, 2 minutes? Oh shit. Okay. Okay, creator economy. We can talk about that. So basically, yeah, you can unlock new forms of value. I'm happy to chat more about that. The DAO structure provides like a really natural home for that, through which you can rent your talent and time and leverage it to facilitate fractional ownership in a community or a system that is fundamentally governed by that community. So the decentralized society angle, the age of community, I think that's another really big reason why people are showing up in this space. This is a really hard slide to see, but this is you probably all know this, Maslow's theory of human motivation and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the premise of which the greatest need is self-actualization. This slide was actually created by a University of Alberta professor, Kathy Blackstock, in 2014, that shows the differences between Maslow's Western philosophy of hierarchy of needs and First Nations perspectives on the hierarchy of needs. And Maslow actually did a lot of his research with Indigenous communities to come up with his hierarchy of needs. He just forgot that after self-actualization, you actually need community actualization, and that part of our sense of belonging and identity comes from being in a community and being with people who see the value that we bring to a project and acknowledge what we can create and what we can contribute. There's a lot of really amazing work around regenerative communities in this space right now. And again, I think this speaks to why more people who aren't devs are coming into this space, is because we want to feel that sense of belonging and we want to be seen by a community. What problems need to be solved to help DAOs reach their full potential? I don't have a ton of time to go through all of this. I'll just quickly run through it, but they all relate to actually governance token standards. So if I go back to my initial definition on what a DAO is and that it's fundamentally using blockchain technology, we really need to think about and evolve the technological underpinnings and software that make up how governance happens on the blockchain. So there's still a problem right now where a lot of legacy DAOs, it's funny to have legacy DAOs now, but DeFi projects who are still using liquid token governance to do their voting. And what we really need to be moving towards is kind of mixed token standards where you actually can't sell or transfer your vote. You have to make governance more tied to non-transferable identity and social and non-financial contributions to community. I ran out of time, but the rest of the stuff that I talk about here is actually, if you go to Devolution DAO on Twitter, that's the project I've been involved in. You can see our demo. There's more information on the challenges at an architecture level for DAOs, but that's my pitch on why DAOs matter.
Thank you.
Thanks.